The heavy glass door of Golden Dragon Martial Arts Academy made a soft whoosh sound as 12-year-old Zara Thompson pushed it open. Her twin sister Zuri followed right behind her, both girls clutching their brand new white belts in their sweaty palms. The cool air conditioning hit their faces as they stepped inside, a welcome relief from the hot summer afternoon outside. "Wow," Zuri whispered, her eyes wide as she looked around the dojo. The place was bigger than they had imagined. Shiny wooden floors stretched across the entire room, so clean they could see their reflection. Mirrors covered every wall from floor to ceiling, making the space look even larger. Red and gold dragons were painted on the walls, their fierce eyes seeming to watch everyone who entered. Zara nudged her sister gently. "Stop staring," she said quietly. "We don't want to look like we don't belong here." But the truth was, both girls felt a little out of place. They had never been inside a real martial arts school before. All their knowledge came from watching karate movies with their dad and copying moves they found on YouTube videos. Their mom had finally agreed to sign them up for classes after they got suspended from school for fighting with some bullies who were picking on smaller kids. "If you're going to fight," their mother had said, "then you're going to learn how to do it properly and with discipline." The dojo smelled different than anywhere they had been before. It was a mix of cleaning products, rubber mats, and something else they couldn't identify. Maybe it was the smell of hard work and sweat that had soaked into the walls over many years. As they walked deeper into the room, conversations began to stop. Other students who were stretching and warming up started to look at them. The twins were used to getting attention. They looked almost exactly alike, with the same bright brown eyes, the same confident way of walking, and the same natural athletic build. But this attention felt different. It felt like they were being judged. There were about 20 other students in the class, and most of them were older teenagers or adults. A few kids their age sat in one corner, but even they looked like they had been training for years. Everyone seemed to know exactly what they were doing, where to sit, how to tie their belts properly. "You must be the Thompson twins," a warm voice said behind them. They turned around to see a woman in her 40s walking toward them. She wore a black belt with gold stripes, and her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail. Her smile was genuine and welcoming. "I'm Sensei Martinez," she said, bowing slightly. "Your mother told me a lot about you two. She said you're both very determined young ladies." Zara and Zuri bowed back, trying to copy what they had seen in movies. Sensei Martinez chuckled softly. "Don't worry about being perfect right away," she said. "Everyone starts somewhere. The most important thing is that you're here and ready to learn." She led them to the side of the room where they could put their shoes and water bottles. "Today we'll start with some basic techniques," she explained. "Even though we have students of different belt levels here, everyone practices the fundamentals. Good technique is built on strong basics." As they sat down to remove their sneakers, Zara noticed 3 students standing near the center of the room. They were all wearing black belts, and they looked like they were in high school. 2 boys and 1 girl, all of them tall and athletic. The way they stood, the way other students seemed to look up to them, it was clear they were the top students in this dojo. The first boy was tall and muscular, with short hair and arms crossed over his chest. The second boy was thinner but looked quick and flexible. The girl had long hair in a tight braid and was practicing kicks that looked almost too fast to follow. "Those are our senior students," Sensei Martinez said, noticing where Zara was looking. "Marcus, Damon, and Keisha. They've been training here for several years. Maybe later they can help show you some techniques." Zuri felt a small flutter of nervousness in her stomach. "How long does it take to get a black belt?" she asked. "Usually about 5 to 7 years of serious training," Sensei Martinez replied. "But remember, the belt is just a piece of cloth. What matters is what you learn along the way. Discipline, respect, perseverance, and how to use your skills responsibly." The twins nodded, but privately they both wondered if they would ever be as skilled as those 3 students looked. "All right, everyone, let's begin class," Sensei Martinez called out, clapping her hands twice. All the students quickly formed neat rows facing the front of the room. Zara and Zuri hurried to find spots in the back row, but Sensei Martinez gently guided them to the middle. New students go where I can see them and help them, she explained. Don't be shy. The class began with warm-up exercises, jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, and stretches that made muscles the twins didn't even know they had start to ache. But they kept up with everyone else, determined not to show any weakness. During the stretching portion, Zara overheard Marcus talking to his friends. Great, now we have to slow down for beginners, he said, just loud enough for several people to hear. At least they look like they're in shape, Keisha replied. Some new students can barely do 10 push-ups. Damon stretched his legs and glanced back at the twins. We'll see how tough they really are when we start sparring. The three of them laughed quietly, but there was something about their laughter that didn't sound friendly. It sounded like they were planning something. Sensei Martinez began teaching the basic front kick. She demonstrated the proper way to lift the knee, extend the leg, and snap it back. It looked simple when she did it, but when the twins tried to copy her movement, they realized how much balance and coordination it required. Good effort, Sensei Martinez said, walking over to adjust Zuri's stance. Remember to keep your guard up with your hands, even when you're kicking. In a real situation, you need to protect yourself at all times. For the next 30 minutes, they practiced the same kick over and over. Some of the other students seemed bored, especially the higher belts who had obviously done this thousands of times before. But the twins were fascinated. Every time they repeated the movement, they felt themselves getting a little bit better, a little bit more balanced. Not bad for YouTube warriors, Marcus commented as he passed behind them during a water break. Zara turned around. What did you say? Marcus smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. Nothing, just thinking out loud. As class continued, the twins began to notice that the three black belts were watching them closely. Not in a helpful way, but more like they were looking for mistakes or weaknesses. When Zara's kick went a little too high, Keisha smirked. When Zuri stumbled slightly during a balance exercise, Damon whispered something to Marcus that made him grin. The final part of class was forms practice, choreographed sequences of movements that told a story of fighting against imaginary opponents. The twins were given a simple form with just 4 moves, while the advanced students performed complex routines that looked like deadly dances. As they practiced their basic form, Sensei Martinez came over to help them. Very good for your first day, she said. You both have natural athletic ability. With practice and dedication, you could become excellent martial artists. Her words filled both girls with pride and determination. They had found something they wanted to be good at, something that felt important and meaningful. Class ended with everyone sitting in neat rows again, meditating in silence for 2 minutes. Then they bowed to Sensei Martinez and to each other, showing respect for their teacher and their fellow students. As the twins gathered their things to leave, they felt excited about coming back. They had survived their first class, learned some real techniques, and even received praise from their instructor. But as they walked toward the door, Marcus stepped into their path. Hey, he said, his tone casual but his eyes serious. Can I give you two some advice? The twins stopped and looked at him. Up close, he seemed even taller and more intimidating. This isn't like those movies you've probably watched, he continued. Real martial arts takes years to learn properly. Some people think they can just show up and be tough right away, but it doesn't work like that. We're not trying to be tough, Zara replied. We just want to learn. Marcus nodded slowly. Good. Just remember, respect is earned here, not given. You start at the bottom just like everyone else. Behind him, Damon and Keisha had appeared, flanking him like bodyguards. See you next class, Keisha said, but there was something in her voice that sounded more like a warning than a friendly goodbye. The twins walked out of the dojo and into the parking lot where their mother was waiting in the car. As they climbed into the back seat, both girls were quiet, processing everything that had happened. How was it? Their mom asked cheerfully. It was great, Zuri said, and she meant it. The class had been challenging and exciting. The instructor is really nice, Zara added, and we learned some cool moves. But as their mother drove them home, both twins were thinking about those 3 black belts and the way they had looked at them. There had been something in their eyes that suggested the real test was just beginning. That night, in their shared bedroom, the twins talked quietly about their first day. "Did you notice how those older kids were acting?" Zuri asked. "Yeah," Zara replied. "Like they didn't want us there." 3 days after their first class, Zara and Zuri walked back into the Golden Dragon dojo with more confidence. They had spent hours at home practicing the front kick they learned, using their bedroom mirror to check their form. Their mom had even bought them proper karate uniforms, white cotton gi that made them feel like real martial artists. "Remember what Sensei Martinez said about keeping our guard up," Zara whispered to her sister as they changed into their uniforms in the small locker room. "And don't forget to bow before stepping on the mat," Zuri added, adjusting her white belt carefully. The sisters had watched several YouTube videos about karate etiquette and traditions. They wanted to show respect and prove they were serious students, not just kids playing around. When they entered the main training area, they noticed the same 3 black belts from their first class. Marcus was helping a younger student with his stance, while Damon and Keisha practiced complex kicks against heavy punching bags. To new eyes, they looked like helpful senior students and skilled martial artists. "Good evening, Zara and Zuri." Sensei Martinez greeted them warmly. "I'm glad to see you back. How did the practice go at home?" "We practiced every day," Zuri said proudly. "We want to get better fast." "That's the right attitude," their instructor smiled. "But remember, martial arts is like building a house. You need strong foundations before you can build higher. Patience is just as important as practice." The class began with warm-up exercises again. This time, the twins kept up better with the jumping jacks and push-ups. Their muscles were still sore from the last class, but they pushed through the discomfort. During stretching, Marcus walked over to where they were sitting. "Hey, you two are back," he said, with what seemed like a friendly smile. "That's good. A lot of people quit after the first class. It's harder than they expect." "We're not quitters," Zara replied firmly. "I can see that," Marcus nodded. "You know what? Since you're so determined, maybe I can give you some extra help. We senior students are supposed to help the beginners." Damon and Keisha appeared beside him, as if they had planned this conversation. "Yeah, we'd love to help," Keisha said sweetly. "We remember what it was like to be new." "That's very kind of you," Sensei Martinez said, overhearing their conversation. "Senior students helping juniors is a wonderful tradition in martial arts." The twins felt a warm feeling of acceptance. Maybe they had been wrong about these 3. Maybe they really did want to help. "Today we're going to learn blocking techniques," Sensei Martinez announced to the class. "These are just as important as kicks and punches. A good defense can save you from getting hurt." She demonstrated how to block a punch coming toward the face and how to block kicks aimed at the body. The movements looked simple, but they required perfect timing and positioning. "Let's practice in pairs," she instructed. "One person will throw slow, controlled attacks, and the other will practice blocking." Marcus immediately stepped forward. "I'll partner with Zara," he said. "I can help her learn the right way." Keisha moved toward Zuri. "And I'll work with her sister." The twins looked at each other and shrugged. This seemed like a good opportunity to learn from experienced students. What happened next was not what they expected. When Marcus threw his first punch toward Zara's face, it was much faster and harder than Sensei Martinez had demonstrated. Zara barely got her block up in time, and the impact sent a shock through her arm. "Oops, sorry," Marcus said loudly enough for others to hear. "I guess I'm used to training with advanced students. You need to be faster than that." Across the room, Keisha was doing the same thing to Zuri. Her kicks were coming in harder and faster than a beginner could handle. When Zuri's block was a little slow, Keisha's foot tapped her shoulder. "You have to pay attention," Keisha said in a voice that sounded helpful but felt mean. "In a real fight, nobody will go easy on you." The twins tried to keep up, but it was clear that their helpers were not making things easier. Instead, they seemed to be testing how much the girls could take. "Maybe we should practice with each other first," Zura suggested to her sister during a water break. "Good idea," Zara agreed, rubbing her sore arm. But when they tried to partner together, Marcus interrupted them. No, he said, shaking his head. "You won't learn anything by practicing with someone at your same level. You need to train with people who are better than you." Sensei Martinez was busy helping other students and didn't notice what was happening. She saw the senior students working with the twins and assumed everything was going well. The second half of class was even worse. They practiced combinations, blocking, and then counterattacking. Marcus and Keisha continued their pattern of being too aggressive, too fast, and too hard for beginners. When Zara tried to block and counterpunch like she had been taught, Marcus easily avoided her slow technique and tapped her shoulder with his own counterattack. "You're telegraphing your moves," he said critically. "I can see what you're going to do before you do it. You need to be more sneaky." But when Zara asked him to show her how to be less obvious, his demonstrations were so fast and complex that she couldn't follow them. Damon joined in the helping by offering advice that sounded good, but was actually wrong. When Zuri was practicing her blocking stance, he corrected her position in a way that actually made her balance worse. "No, put your foot there," he said, moving her leg to a position that looked right, but felt unstable. "And lean forward more when you block." Zuri tried to follow his instructions, but something felt off. When she tried to block Keisha's next attack, she almost fell over. "See?" Damon said with fake concern. "You're not listening to the corrections. You have to trust your senior students." By the end of class, both twins were frustrated and confused. They had worked harder than anyone else, but they felt like they were getting worse instead of better. During the final meditation, Zara's mind was racing. Something was wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on what it was. The senior students were helping them, just like they had offered. So why did it feel like they were being picked on? After class, as they gathered their things, Marcus approached them again. "You two did okay today," he said in a tone that didn't sound like praise. "But you have a long way to go. Some people are natural fighters and others—" He shrugged. "Well, others have to work a lot harder." "We're willing to work hard," Zuri said, trying to keep the frustration out of her voice. "That's good," Keisha said, joining the conversation. "Because this isn't like the movies where someone becomes a black belt in a few months. Real martial arts takes years of dedication. Not everyone has what it takes. Some people think they're tough because they got in a few fights at school," Damon added, appearing beside his friends. "But there's a big difference between street fighting and real martial arts." The twins felt their faces get hot. How did these students know about their school fights? Had Sensei Martinez told them? "We're not here to prove we're tough," Zara said quietly. "We're here to learn discipline and self-control." Marcus laughed. "Self-control? You two couldn't even control your tempers at school. That's why you're here, right? Your mom probably told you to channel your anger or something like that." The twins looked at each other in shock. They had never told anyone at the dojo about why they started taking karate. Someone had been talking about them behind their backs. "Look," Marcus continued, his voice getting more serious. "This dojo has standards. We've all worked hard to get where we are. You can't just show up and expect to fit in right away. Respect has to be earned." "We respect everyone here," Zuri said, her voice shaking slightly. "Do you?" Keisha asked, tilting her head. "Because it seems like you think you're special. Identical twins, both starting together, both thinking you're going to be the next karate champions." "We never said anything like that," Zara protested. "You don't have to say it," Damon replied. "We can see it in how you act. How you walk in here so confident, how you practice at home like you're going to show us all up." The twins realized with growing horror that these three students had been watching them, judging them, and planning this confrontation from the very beginning. "Here's some free advice," Marcus said, stepping closer. "Humble yourself. Accept that. You're beginners. Stop trying so hard to impress everyone, and maybe if you're lucky you'll earn a place here." With that, the three black belts walked away, leaving the twins standing alone by the door. As they walked to their mother's car, both girls were quiet. The excitement they had felt after their first class was gone, replaced by confusion and hurt. "How did they know about our school fights?" Zuri asked finally. "I don't know," Zara replied. "But they've been planning this. They don't want us here." "Well, too bad," Zuri said, her voice getting stronger. "We have just as much right to be here as they do. We paid for classes just like everyone else." Zara nodded. feeling her own determination return. You're right, we didn't do anything wrong. We were respectful, we worked hard, and we followed all the rules. As their mother drove them home, the twins made a silent pact. They would not let these three bullies drive them away from something they wanted to learn. They would get better, stronger, and more skilled. And someday they would show Marcus, Damon, and Keisha that they had been wrong about the Thompson twins. But first, they had to figure out how to survive the next. 2 weeks had passed since the twins first walked into Golden Dragon Dojo, and things had gotten much worse. What started as subtle bullying from Marcus, Damon, and Keisha had turned into an open campaign to make Zara and Zuri quit. Every class followed the same pattern. The 3 black belts would volunteer to help the twins, then use their superior skills to embarrass and hurt them. They were careful to do it in ways that looked like legitimate training to anyone who wasn't paying close attention. During sparring practice, Marcus would request to fight Zara. "I want to help her learn what real fighting feels like," he would tell Sensei Martinez with a helpful smile. But these weren't learning experiences. They were beatings disguised as lessons. Marcus would use his size and strength advantage to overwhelm Zara completely. His punches came faster than she could block, his kicks hit harder than necessary, and his combinations were too advanced for any white belt to handle. When Zara would stumble or get knocked down, Marcus would offer his hand to help her up. "You, okay?" he would ask loudly, making sure everyone could see his fake concern. "Maybe you need to work on your conditioning more." The same thing happened to Zuri with Keisha and Damon. They would take turns fighting her, using techniques she had never seen before and hitting with just enough force to hurt without leaving obvious bruises. "In a real fight, your opponent won't hold back," Keisha would say after knocking Zuri to the ground with a sweep kick. "This is good practice for you, but the worst part wasn't the physical beating. It was the constant stream of criticism and put-downs that came with it. Your stance is all wrong," Damon would say, even when Zuri was doing exactly what Sensei Martinez had taught her. "You're too slow," Keisha would add. "Real martial artists have faster reflexes." "Maybe karate isn't for everyone," Marcus would conclude with a shrug. The twins endured it all without complaining. They had been raised not to be quitters, and they weren't going to start now. But the harassment was taking its toll. At home, they would ice their bruises and practice the techniques they were learning in class. They watched karate videos online, trying to figure out what they were doing wrong and how they could improve faster. "Look at this video," Zuri said one evening, showing her sister a tutorial on blocking combinations. "That guy is doing the same block Damon tried to teach me, but his foot position is completely different." Zara studied the screen carefully. "You're right. Damon was showing you the wrong way on purpose." This was their breakthrough moment. They realized that the 3 black belts weren't just being tough on them, they were actively trying to sabotage. "They're learning. They're giving us bad advice so we'll look stupid," Zara said, anger building in her voice. "And they're hitting us harder than they're supposed to during practice," Zuri added. The twins made a decision that night. They would stop listening to Marcus, Damon, and Keisha. Instead, they would focus only on what Sensei Martinez taught them, and they would help each other learn the correct techniques. The next class was a turning point. When Marcus approached Zara for sparring practice, she was ready for him. She had spent hours studying proper defensive positions and timing. When he threw his usual overwhelming combination of attacks, Zara didn't try to block everything. Instead, she focused on protecting herself and looking for openings. Something amazing happened. Marcus's attacks, which had seemed impossibly fast before, now looked predictable. He used the same combinations every time, always starting with a high punch followed by a low kick. When Marcus threw his predictable high punch, Zara ducked under it and managed to land a clean counterpunch to his stomach. It wasn't hard enough to hurt him, but it was solid contact that scored a point according to tournament rules. The entire class went quiet. A white belt had just scored on a black belt. Marcus's face turned red with embarrassment and anger. "Lucky shot," he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. But it wasn't luck, and everyone knew it. Zara had used proper technique and good timing to create an opportunity. Across the room, Zuri was having her own breakthrough with Keisha. Instead of trying to match Keisha's speed and aggression, Zuri focused on staying calm and patient. She let Keisha attack first, then used her opponent's momentum against her. When Keisha threw a high kick that was meant to intimidate, Zuri stepped to the side and swept Keisha's supporting leg. The black belt stumbled and nearly fell, barely catching herself with her hands. "What was that?" Keisha demanded angrily. "A leg sweep," Zuri replied calmly. "Sensei Martinez taught it to us last week." The atmosphere in the dojo shifted. Other students had been watching the ongoing harassment of the twins, and many of them had felt uncomfortable about it. But seeing the twins start to hold their own against their tormentors gave everyone a new perspective. During the water break, several younger students approached the twins. "That was awesome," said Jake, a 10-year-old green belt. "I've been wanting to see someone stand up to those three for months." "They've been bullying other new students too," added Sarah, a teenage yellow belt. "But nobody ever fought back before." The twins realized they weren't the only ones who had been having problems with Marcus, Damon, and Keisha. These three had been using their black belt status to intimidate and control other students for a long time. "Why doesn't anyone tell Sensei Martinez?" Zara asked. Jake shrugged. "They're smart about it. They make it look like they're just being tough instructors, and they're really good fighters, so everyone is kind of scared of them." "Well, we're not scared," Zuri declared firmly. The second half of class was forms practice. Each belt level had different kata to learn, choreographed sequences of movements that told stories of ancient battles. The twins had been working hard on their basic white belt form, and their improvement was obvious. Their stances were solid, their techniques were crisp, and they moved with growing confidence. As they practiced, Marcus walked by and made a loud comment. "Still doing beginner moves," he said mockingly. "Some people never progress." This time, instead of ignoring him, Zara stopped her form and looked directly at Marcus. "Everyone has to start somewhere," she said clearly. "Even you were a white belt once." "Yeah, but I didn't stay one for long," Marcus replied with a sneer. "Maybe that's because nobody was trying to sabotage your learning," Zuri added, joining her sister. The comment hit its mark. Marcus's face darkened and he took a step toward the twins. "What did you just say?" he demanded. "You heard us," Zara replied, not backing down. "We know what you've been doing. The wrong advice, the extra hard hits during sparring, all of it." By now, other students had stopped their own practice to watch the confrontation. Even Sensei Martinez was looking over, sensing that something important was happening. "You think we're picking on you?" Keisha asked, moving to stand beside Marcus. "Maybe you're just not as tough as you thought you were." "We're tough enough," Zuri replied firmly. "We're still here, aren't we?" Damon joined his friends, and now all three black belts were facing the two white belt twins. The size difference was obvious, but the twins didn't look scared. "Here's the thing," Marcus said, his voice low and threatening. "This dojo has a certain way of doing things, a hierarchy. You two need to learn your place." "Our place is wherever we earn it," Zara shot back, "not wherever you think we belong." The confrontation might have escalated further, but Sensei Martinez clapped her hands sharply. "All right, everyone, back to practice," she called out. "We have a lot to cover before the end of class." The three black belts reluctantly moved away, but the message had been sent clearly to everyone in the room. The Thompson twins were no longer going to be silent victims. After class, as the twins gathered their things, they noticed that other students were looking at them with new respect. Some even nodded or smiled as they walked by. "That was brave," said Maria, an adult purple belt. "Those three have needed someone to stand up to them for a long time." As they walked to their mother's car, both twins felt different than they had after previous classes. Instead of feeling beaten down and discouraged, they felt empowered and determined. "They're going to be even worse now," Zuri predicted. "Probably," Zara agreed. "But I don't care anymore. We know we belong here just as much as they do. And we're getting better every day," Zuri added. "Did you see Marcus's face when you hit him? He wasn't expecting that." The twins had discovered something important about bullies. They relied on their victims staying quiet and accepting the abuse. When someone fought back, especially in front of others, the bullies lost some of their power. That night, They practiced, with even more intensity than before. They weren't just learning karate techniques anymore. They were preparing for war. The next class would be the real test. Marcus, Damon, and Keisha would not let this challenge to their authority go unanswered. But the twins were ready for whatever came next. They had found their courage, and they weren't going to lose it now. The atmosphere in the dojo felt different the moment Zara and Zuri walked through the doors. Word had spread about their confrontation with the 3 black belts, and everyone seemed to be waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus, Damon, and Keisha were already there, warming up in their usual spot near the center of the room. They looked calm and confident, but there was something in their eyes that hadn't been there before. A cold determination that made the twins feel like they were walking into a trap. "Good evening, everyone," Sensei Martinez called out as she entered the training area. Behind her walked 2 other adults in black belts, instructors from other martial arts schools in the city. "Tonight we have special guests," she announced. "Master Chen from Dragon's Gate Academy and Master Williams from Peaceful Warrior Dojo. They're here to observe our training and share some techniques with us." The twins exchanged glances. Having visiting masters in the dojo meant this was an important night. Everyone would be expected to perform at their best. "To make tonight extra special," Sensei Martinez continued, "we're going to have a friendly sparring tournament. Nothing competitive, just an opportunity for students to test their skills against different opponents and learn from each other." Marcus stepped forward with a respectful bow. "Sensei Martinez, if I may suggest, it might be educational for everyone to see different skill levels in action. Perhaps some of the newer students could spar with more advanced partners." Master Chen nodded approvingly. "Excellent idea. In real martial arts, you must be prepared to face opponents of all skill levels." Sensei Martinez smiled. "That's very thoughtful, Marcus. I think that would be a wonderful learning experience." The twins felt their stomachs drop. They realized this had been planned. Marcus had convinced their instructor to set up matches that would let him and his friends legally beat them up in front of visiting masters. "The first match will be Zara Thompson versus Marcus Rodriguez," Sensei Martinez announced. As they walked to the center of the mat, Marcus leaned close to Zara's ear. "This is where you learn what real karate looks like," he whispered. "Try not to embarrass yourself too badly in front of the masters." Zara bowed to her opponent, her heart pounding, but her mind clear. She had been preparing for this moment every night since their last confrontation. She and Zuri had studied videos of tournament fighting, practiced defensive strategies, and learned to stay calm under pressure. "Fighters ready?" the referee called out. Both students raised their hands to signal they were prepared. "Hajime," the referee shouted, starting the match. Marcus immediately launched into his usual attack pattern, the same combinations he had been using to overwhelm Zara for weeks. But this time she was ready for them. When Marcus threw his opening high punch, Zara didn't try to block it. Instead, she ducked low and moved to the side, making his attack miss completely. When he followed with his predictable low kick, she was already out of range. "Fight," Marcus demanded, frustrated that none of his attacks were landing. "Stop running away." But Zara wasn't running. She was using strategy. For the first minute of the match, she focused entirely on defense and movement. She studied Marcus's timing, his favorite techniques, and the patterns he fell into when he got angry. Then she saw her opening. Marcus, growing more frustrated by the second, threw a wild hook punch that left his entire left side exposed. Zara stepped in smoothly and landed a perfect reverse punch to his solar plexus, the kind of technique that Sensei Martinez had been teaching in class. The impact echoed through the quiet dojo. Marcus staggered backward, the wind knocked out of him. "Point," the referee called out, raising his hand toward Zara. The watching students erupted in surprised cheers. Even the visiting masters leaned forward with interest. Marcus's face turned red with embarrassment and rage. A white belt had just scored on him in front of masters from other schools. His reputation as the dojo's top fighter was being challenged by a 12-year-old girl who had been training for less than a month. "Lucky shot," he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. The match continued, and Marcus became more aggressive and reckless. He threw combinations that were too wild, kicked too high, and left himself open to counters. Zara didn't score again, but she didn't need to. She had proven her point. When the match ended, Marcus had won on points, but everyone could see that Zara had fought with intelligence and skill. She had turned a mismatch into a competitive fight. Excellent demonstration, Master Chen said as both fighters bowed. The young lady showed excellent defensive awareness and patience. The next match will be Zuri Thompson versus Keisha Jackson, Sensei Martinez announced. Keisha had watched her friend's match with growing concern. If Zara could make Marcus look bad, what could her twin sister do? Don't think you can pull the same tricks on me, Keisha warned as they faced each other on the mat. Zuri smiled calmly. I don't need tricks. I have technique. The second match began with Keisha trying to end things quickly. She threw a barrage of kicks and punches, hoping to overwhelm Zuri before she could settle into a rhythm. But Zuri had learned from watching her sisters fight. Instead of trying to counterattack immediately, she focused on surviving the initial storm. She blocked what she could, avoided what she couldn't block, and waited for Keisha to make a mistake. That mistake came when Keisha attempted a flashy spinning kick that looked impressive but left her off balance. Zuri stepped in and executed a simple but perfect leg sweep, sending Keisha tumbling to the mat. Point, the referee declared. The dojo erupted again. 2 white belts had now scored points against black belts in the same evening. Keisha got up quickly, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You got lucky, she hissed. No, Zuri replied quietly. I got better. The final demonstration was the most unusual of all. Sensei Martinez announced that both twins would face Damon together in a special 2-versus-1 match. This will show the importance of teamwork and coordination, she explained to the visiting masters. Damon felt confident facing 2 white belts, even if they had surprised his friends. He was the most technical fighter of the 3 black belts, and he was sure his superior skills would be enough to handle both girls at once. He was wrong. Zara and Zuri had grown up together, played together, and fought side by side against school bullies. They communicated without words and moved like they shared one mind. When Damon attacked Zara, Zuri would attack him from the side. When he turned to face Zuri, Zara would strike from behind. They didn't try to overpower him. They used angles, timing, and teamwork to confuse and frustrate him. The most impressive moment came when Damon threw a high kick at Zara. She ducked under it while Zuri simultaneously swept his supporting leg. Damon found himself airborne and crashed to the mat with both twins standing over him. The watching students cheered loudly. Even some of the adult black belts nodded with respect. Outstanding, Master Williams exclaimed. That was beautiful teamwork. These young ladies have real potential. When all the demonstrations were finished, the visiting masters spoke to the entire class about what they had witnessed. Tonight we saw something special, Master Chen said. We saw students who used intelligence over strength, patience over aggression, and teamwork over individual ego. These are the true principles of martial arts. Master Williams added, rank and belt color mean nothing if you don't have heart and determination. Tonight, some white belts showed more martial arts spirit than students with much higher ranks. The 3 black belts stood in humiliated silence. They had been publicly criticized by visiting masters, outfought by beginners, and exposed as bullies who relied on rank rather than skill. After the masters left and class ended, the regular students gathered around the twins with congratulations and respect. That was incredible, said Jake, the young green belt. You two made them look like the bullies they really are. I've never seen anything like that teamwork, added Sarah. You moved like you were reading each other's minds. Even some of the adult students approached the twins with praise. You girls have real talent, said Maria, the purple belt. But more importantly, you have courage. That's worth more than any belt. As Marcus, Damon, and Keisha gathered their things to leave, they looked like defeated warriors. Their reign of intimidation was over, and everyone in the dojo knew it. This isn't finished, Marcus said quietly as he passed the twins. Yes, it is, Zara replied firmly. You lost tonight. All 3 of you, and everyone saw it. As the twins walked to their mother's car, They felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond winning fights. They had stood up to bullies, earned the respect of their peers, and proven that heart and determination could overcome size and experience. "I can't believe we actually did that," Zuri said, still breathing hard from the adrenaline. "I can," Zara replied with a grin. "We've been training for this our whole lives. We just didn't know it yet." The ride home was filled with excited chatter about the evening's events. The twins had faced their biggest test and emerged victorious, but more importantly, they had discovered something about themselves. They were fighters in the truest sense of the word, not because they could throw punches and kicks, but because they never gave up, never backed down, and always stood up for what was right. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight belonged to them. The days following the tournament felt like a completely different world at Golden Dragon Dojo. When Zara and Zuri walked through the doors, they were greeted with smiles and nods of respect from students who had barely acknowledged them before. "Hey, it's the twin fighters," Jake called out excitedly as they entered the locker room. "Are you going to teach us that sweep move you used on Keisha?" Sarah rushed over with her notebook. "Can you show me how you two coordinate your attacks? I've been trying to find a good sparring partner, but nobody works together like you do. Even the adult students treated them differently." Maria, the purple belt, approached them during warm-ups. "I've been thinking about what happened the other night," she said quietly. "I owe you two an apology. We all saw what Marcus, Damon, and Keisha were doing to you, but none of us spoke up. That was wrong." "It's okay," Zara replied, though she appreciated the honesty. "We learned to handle it ourselves." "That's just it," Maria continued. "You shouldn't have had to handle it alone. A real dojo is supposed to be a family. We should have protected you from the beginning." The twins were surprised to learn how many people had noticed the bullying, but felt powerless to stop it. Story. The next few classes, several students privately apologized and shared their own stories of being intimidated by the three black belts. "They made me feel stupid for asking questions," admitted Tom, a teenage brown belt. "I stopped raising my hand in class because Damon would always make fun of my questions later. Keisha told me I was too weak to be a real martial artist," said Lisa, an adult yellow belt. "I almost quit because of her comments." The twins realized they hadn't just won fights that night. They had freed an entire dojo from a culture of fear and intimidation, but the biggest change was in Marcus, Damon, and Keisha themselves. The three former bullies had become strangely quiet. They still came to class, but they no longer acted like they owned the place. They practiced by themselves, avoided eye contact with other students, and seemed genuinely ashamed of their behavior. Sensei Martinez had clearly spoken to them privately about what happened during the tournament. The visiting masters had not only praised the twins, but had also criticized the attitude and sportsmanship of the senior students. "A black belt represents the highest ideals of martial arts," Master Chen had told Sensei Martinez before leaving. "Those three young people have forgotten what that means. They have skill, but they lack character." 2 weeks after the tournament, something unexpected happened. Marcus approached the twins during a water break, but this time he looked different. His usual arrogant posture was gone, replaced by genuine humility. "Can I talk to you two for a minute?" he asked quietly. Zara and Zuri exchanged glances. They were cautious, but curious about what he wanted to say. "I owe you both an apology," Marcus began, his voice barely above a whisper. "What we did to you was wrong. We weren't helping you learn. We were trying to make you quit." He took a deep breath before continuing. "I've been thinking a lot about why we did that. I think we were scared. You two came in here with so much natural talent and determination. We were afraid you would make us look bad. So you decided to make us look bad instead?" Zuri asked, not ready to forgive easily. Marcus nodded shamefully. "Yeah, and that was stupid and mean. Real martial artists are supposed to help each other improve, not tear each other down." Damon and Keisha appeared beside their friend, both looking equally uncomfortable. "We talked to Sensei Martinez," Keisha said quietly. "She explained that black belts are supposed to be role models, not bullies. We failed at that completely. We also found out that other students have been afraid to speak up in class because of how we acted," Damon added. We never realized We were hurting so many people. The twins listened carefully. These apologies sounded genuine, but words were easy. Actions would prove whether the change was real. What are you going to do about it? Zara asked directly. Whatever it takes to make things right, Marcus replied. Sensei Martinez is making us start character training over from the beginning. We have to earn back the respect of everyone in this dojo. And we want to help make this place better for new students, Keisha added. The way it should have been for you two from the start. Over the following weeks, the 3 former bullies proved their words with actions. They began helping younger students properly, giving real advice instead of fake corrections. They volunteered to clean the dojo after classes and helped set up equipment before training. Most importantly, they publicly apologized to everyone they had intimidated or mistreated. I'm sorry for making you feel unwelcome here, Marcus told Jake during one class. You belong here just as much as anyone else. I was wrong to criticize your questions, Damon said to Tom. Asking questions is how we learn. Please keep asking them. I had no right to comment on your abilities, Keisha told Lisa. You're stronger than I gave you credit for, and I'm sorry I made you doubt yourself. The atmosphere in the dojo transformed completely. Students who had been quiet and intimidated began participating more in class. Questions were welcomed and answered with patience. New students were greeted with genuine warmth instead of suspicion. The twins found themselves in an unexpected position. They had become the unofficial leaders of the younger students. Other kids looked up to them not just because they could fight, but because they had shown courage and character when it mattered most. How did you stay so brave when they were picking on you? Asked Emma, a new 8-year-old student who reminded the twins of themselves when they first started. We had each other, Zuri explained simply, and we remembered why we came here, to learn and improve ourselves, not to impress anyone else. Plus, Zara added with a grin, we were too stubborn to let them win. 6 months after their first class, the twins were ready for their first belt promotion test. They had progressed faster than most students, not just because of their natural talent, but because of their dedication and positive attitude. The testing was held on a Saturday morning, with parents and family members invited to watch. The twins' mother sat in the front row, beaming with pride as she watched her daughters demonstrate the techniques they had learned. Zara and Zuri Thompson, Sensei Martinez called out, please step forward for your yellow belt examination. The twins performed their kata with precision and confidence. Their basic techniques were sharp and controlled. When it came time for sparring, they faced opponents their own rank and demonstrated perfect sportsmanship and technique. But the most meaningful part of the test came when Sensei Martinez asked them to demonstrate leadership by helping a newer student learn a basic technique. The twins worked patiently with 6-year-old Carlos, a shy boy who had just started classes the week before. They encouraged him when he made mistakes, celebrated when he got moves right, and made sure he felt included and supported. Excellent, Sensei Martinez said when the demonstration was complete. This is what martial arts is really about, passing on knowledge and helping others grow. When the testing was finished, Sensei Martinez called everyone together for the belt ceremony. Zara and Zuri Thompson, she announced formally, you have demonstrated not only technical skill but also the character and spirit that define a true martial artist. I am honored to promote you to yellow belt. As the twins tied their new yellow belts around their waists, the entire dojo erupted in applause. Even Marcus, Damon, and Keisha clapped enthusiastically, their faces showing genuine pride for the students they had once tried to drive away. I have a special announcement, Sensei Martinez continued. Starting next month, Zara and Zuri will be assistant instructors for our children's beginner class. They have shown exceptional leadership and will help ensure that every new student feels welcome and supported. The twins looked at each other in amazement. They had gone from being bullied beginners to assistant instructors in just 6 months. After the ceremony, as families gathered for pictures and celebrations, Marcus approached the twins one final time. Congratulations, he said sincerely. You, too, deserve this more than anyone. You've made this whole dojo a better place. Thanks, Zara replied. But we all did it together. That's what makes a real martial arts family. As they drove home with their new belts and certificates, the twins reflected on their incredible journey. "Remember when we thought karate was just about fighting?" Zuri asked her sister. "Yeah," Zara laughed. "Now I know it's about so much more than that. It's about standing up for what's right, helping others, and never giving up on yourself. And having each other's backs no matter what," Zuri added. Their mother looked at them in the rearview mirror with tears of pride in her eyes. "You girls have learned something that many adults never figure out," she said. "True strength comes from character, not from physical power." That evening, as they hung their new belts in their bedroom, the twins made a promise to each other. They would use their position as assistant instructors to make sure no new student would ever face what they had gone through. They would teach technique and discipline, but most importantly, they would teach by example that martial arts was about building people up, not tearing them down.